Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry, episode 64. As always, once again, I'm joined by Dom.
The boys are back.
The boys are back, and Jordan.
Hooray, I have returned.
This is our first
good.
podcast together in, I think, almost a month. You know, things happen. Glad to be back. Glad we're finally all together. So last week I had to do a one-man podcast, which is interesting. Now I get to actually talk to people about what I've been playing, so that's good. This was, I think the most superhero overload week I've had. I talked about this last week, too. So last week I played through Injustice 2. I obviously beat the game, but I've been playing through the multiverse stuff, which is it basically adds onto the game and gives you more to play. It gives you all these different scenarios with the iconic characters in different gear sets and different modifiers to the gameplay. Like, one of them was like a Joker-based event, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, where you were poisoned. So the whole match, through all of the matches, your health was slowly ticking down. So not only were you trying to beat these people, you were trying to beat them before your own health went away. Some other modifiers are like you don't have the ability to jump, or you don't have the ability to use your super, stuff like that, and it adds a lot of interesting stuff to the game. It has a lot more legs than I anticipated. The whole gear system's cool. The battle simulator allows you to, without spoiling anything, beat the game and have the hero of the game be each individual character, and then you get to see the aftermath of that. They're not fully fledged like 3D CG things like the actual story mode of the game. They're more 2D animated stuff, but they're pretty good quality. And it's just cool to see different versions of how the ending would play out based on the characters, right? I talked about how, or maybe I didn't last week, one of my favorite ones, I've only done 3 or 4 of them so far, Supergirl, Blue Beetle, Batman, and Green Lantern. And Green Arrow is really cool because at the end of it, he basically talks about having to go back to his own universe because, long story short, in the Injustice universe, the Green Arrow that's fighting in this thing is from the other universe. The Green Arrow in this universe died in the first game. And he talks about how he goes back to his own universe to try to defeat Brainiac before that happens. And long story short, the Multiverse Justice League shows up, which is essentially like the baddest of the bad for every superhero. So it's like the one that represents all Superman, the one that represents all Batman, right? Or Batman. So the really cool thing with that one is like the Multiverse Justice League Superman was a black Superman, which is really weird because he's not Green Lantern, he's not somebody we've seen as different. Like, out of all superheroes, I think Superman would be the one that I would definitely always see as a white dude, So it's really jarring, but it was actually really cool to see black Superman. But yeah, that game has a lot of legs, and I'm playing a lot of it. And I actually, on another podcast, I want to get into how I think Injustice 2 is probably the most accessible fighting game we've ever had. And even more, people are like, oh, what about Mortal Kombat? I think it's even more accessible than that because I think superheroes are way more accessible than the Mortal Kombat universe. And just to put this in perspective, I've never bought a fighting game outside of like Smash on GameCube. This is the first fighting game since then, and I don't consider Smash a fighting game. That's just a, relative. And I'm playing a ton of it. I love this game so much that I went to go do some research, and I figured out what a special move cancel is, which, like I said, I'm not familiar with fighting games. Loving the hell out of this game. And I'm not even a DC guy too much. I'm more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy. Anyways, I don't want to talk forever. The other game I've been playing is Marvel Heroes Omega, which is the free-to-play game that came from PC to PS4 and Xbox One. It's like
superhero overload.
Exactly. It's like an action RPG. Think of Diablo. It's okay. It's not like a crazy great game or anything like that. There's touches of Marvel Ultimate Alliance and stuff like that, and it does enough to scratch the itch for the time being, but it's very MMO-y, and a lot of that stuff always turns me off of, like, grinding the same levels over and over again, and gear chasing and all that stuff, and I know a lot of people love that stuff, but for me, it's too much. Like, I love going into open-world games and getting every checkpoint and every objective and every collectible, but with this stuff, it's like you're doing all that stuff, and it even feels more empty than it is in those games, So I think the only reason I'm playing this game as much as I am is because there isn't another Marvel game to grab onto, I think once there's other Marvel games for me to play, I'll ditch this, or even when I just don't feel like playing a Marvel game. But right now I want to play something Marvel related, and it's really my only option outside of paying way too much for an Activision remaster. Wink, wink. Marvel Ultimate Alliance and stuff. So
yeah,
just having fun with that. Last thing I want to talk about, I never really talk about reading anything, but I've been in kind of a comic kick, which I kind of come in and out of. I read comics on a fairly normal basis, but I do have periods, like with any medium, we've talked about this before, where you just don't do anything in that medium, right? Don't play any video games, don't watch any movies. So I read Champions 1, which if you're not familiar, Champions is essentially Marvel Teen Titans. It's the best way to describe it. It features Miss Marvel, totally awesome Hulk, who's the new Hulk, who's Amadeus Cho, Nova, Cyclops, and Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales. So I read the first issue of that. Really cool. They're basically come together outside of the Avengers because they don't like the way the current Avengers are handling things. Civil War II happened, and basically the way the Avengers look at things is they screwed up a bunch of stuff, but they're not willing to fix anything, and that really bothers Miss Marvel and a couple of other people, and they end up leaving the Avengers and forming this little squad of people who are going for less crazy dangers and crimes, but their main focus is not only solving the situation, but fixing the aftermath as well, which I think is really cool. Another person that's part of their group is Viv Vision, which is Vision's daughter. So it's really fun. Nice. I'm enjoying that. Went back and started reading New Avengers, which is from like 2003 or 4. And that is pretty interesting as well because the opening page, spoilers if you haven't read New Avengers, it's like a 13-year-old comic at this time. The opening panel of New Avengers shows Scarlet Witch losing her mind and basically messing with her reality-based powers, and Hawkeye, Vision, and Ant-Man all die. And the reason I was interested in reading that is because I think a lot of those storylines are going to come through in Infinity War. Just how like they kind of cherry-picked out of Civil War what they wanted to include in the Civil War movie. I think they're going to add a lot of those elements from New Avengers into this, because I almost guarantee you Hawkeye's going to die in Infinity War. Vision too, considering he has the stone in his head and they need that for the gauntlet. But yeah, so I've been reading that, and then also I mentioned it earlier, Civil War 2, I read the first one. If you're not familiar, the first Civil War was between Captain America, Iron Man fighting over the Superhero Registration Act. Civil War 2 is between Captain Marvel and Iron Man. There's this new Inhuman that they find named Ulysses. He can essentially tell the future with pinpoint accuracy. He knows exactly when things are going to happen. Captain Marvel is on the side of use his ability to stop crimes before they happen. Iron Man is on the side of you can't stop somebody from a crime they haven't committed yet. So that engages
report style.
Exactly, and that clashes. Spoilers. Do either of you mind spoilers for literally the first comic? Do you want me to hold back? I don't want to ruin it for you guys.
Go for it. I'm not going to read it.
You can go ahead. I might read it, but it's one of those things where I'll probably forget it by the time I read it.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think this is going to be something that's set up later in the MCU too, because obviously they're introducing Captain Marvel. Depends on if Robert Downey Jr. stays around or not. They could change who she's against or whatever with this. In the first comic, when you find out about this guy's powers, obviously there's a clash and they're against it. Then what happens is Captain Marvel, Ulysses has a dream. Captain Marvel hears about this. She goes with the secret team to go handle this issue. Tony Stark knows nothing about this. Turns out the issue was Thanos coming back. So they actually know where Thanos is going to be through this future-telling stuff, right? Through Ulysses' powers. And Captain Marvel and a group of heroes go to fight him. They defeat him, but She-Hulk and Rhodey, War Machine, die in the first comic. And that kind of spurs everything to the next level because obviously Rhodey is Iron Man's like best friend, and that engages in a whole argument, and She-Hulk dies, which is kind of crazy, and they deal with the aftermath of that, of like the gamma radiation from her dying, which is something you don't really deal with because, you know, her and Hulk are of their own breed and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it started off really good. I think Civil War starts off really great if you're not familiar with that, of how basically a whole city explodes and there's tons of people that die, and that's the catalyst. I think they set this up very well too, so I'll talk about it later as I keep reading through them, but I've kind of been on a comic binge and superhero binge. So what about you guys?
I have a short list, so we'll get through it here. All I've been playing is Skyrim Remastered.
Why do you say like it's a bad thing? It's fine.
No, it's a great thing. I love it.
Yeah.
That's just been it. I've not had a whole lot of time the past 2 weeks since we've talked. Just dumping time into Skyrim again. Every time I think about it afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? Why am I still playing this game? But I keep wanting to, so I guess I like it.
You want to
right?
play?
Yeah.
Yep.
it's just so soothing. Like I said a couple weeks ago, and I talked about it. It's just nice and relaxing. Otherwise, I've not played anything. That was it. Been watching a couple things that I want to point out. First off, about 4 episodes into season 2 of Man in the High Castle on Amazon. Really good. I like it a lot.
That's the alt history Nazi show, right? To boil it down to the simplest terms. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And there's a twist to something else. I won't say because it kind of would be a spoiler, but there's more to it than just that as it appears. But yeah, so that's really cool. Just the story and everything that's going on and all the politics, because of it's, you got like the Japanese are not even occupying anymore. It's just the west coast of the U.S. is Japan now, right? Or whatever they call it. And then the east coast is Nazi Germany. It's really interesting. And then otherwise, I've been just porking out on episodes of Batman the Animated Series.
Porking out!
That's cool. Nice.
Yeah. No, I used to watch it all the time as a kid, but, when it came on TV, so it was sporadic. I've never, watched them all or anything, just here and there. And I used to love it. It used to be one of those things where I used to, want to go over to my grandparents' house because they had that channel that it was on, and I didn't at home and that kind of thing. So it's really nostalgic. It's pretty good. It holds its own as, quick 20, 25-minute episodes. It's good. I like it. And it's all on Amazon, too, as well, for free. So that was the catalyst there. I just stumbled upon it.
Are you going to watch Beyond after that, or are you just binging the animated series?
Yes, I plan to, because I saw that on there as well. Batman Beyond doesn't come with Prime. You got to buy those. It's like $12 a season, but I'm going to do it once I get there. Because that was the other one I only ever saw a couple episodes of when I was a kid, and that was like the coolest shit ever when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
But I never actually got to enjoy it. It was just one of those things. It was kind of like, not forbidden, but I just never got to. I don't know.
That was
weird.
One of the funny things too. Is as a kid, you'd be like, "Oh, he has some Batman stuff. That's cool." He's like, "Oh, he has some Batman Beyond stuff. That's even cooler."
Exactly. It was it was not accessible. It was this kind of thing I couldn't quite reach. I don't know. So I'm excited to watch all that too. Yeah.
So actually, a couple things. First of all, shout out to Batman the Animated Series, one of my favorite shows of all time. Absolute classic. Also love Beyond, and with Man in the High Castle, I really love that concept. I love alternate history, and I really just love historical dramas for the most part. But I got into the first season of that show, and I got through I'd say at least the first 4 episodes, and I mean, it just felt like chewing cardboard, man. It just felt so boring and bland to me, and I could not for the life of me enjoy that show. So does that change, or does it stay on that trajectory, and just is that how the show is not necessarily boring for everyone, but just not as
slower paced kind of?
I'd say
I don't
overall
know how to describe it.
It's not going to change much for you, I don't think. I will say there is one big thing that happens at the very end of season 1, the very last thing that happens that kind of changes everything. It's kind of a big reveal of what's going on in that universe. And you might find that more interesting as it brings a whole new element. Again, I don't want to say too much, but otherwise the rest of it, the way the story is told, the characters, it's all, the same kind of pace that I've noticed so far. So I don't know if I'd recommend you keep going. Would you agree that it's
pretty slow and plodding?
A little bit. It's got a tone, I guess. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. I can see where you're coming from. I don't know how to describe it, but I still find it all interesting. But I can see where you might get kind of bored. There were a few points where I got distracted, but when I sit down and actually watch it, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good.
Okay, well, I guess you're not through season 2, are you?
No, I'm only halfway through 4 episodes. Okay. I'm episode 5, so
I'll wait for your final judgments on that season then.
What have you been playing? We haven't talked to you in a bit. Have you been playing anything? You've been busy, so.
So yeah, I just started a new job, which is part of the reason I wasn't able to make it these last couple weeks, and so I have had less time, but I've been jumping back into Horizon Zero Dawn to prepare myself for this upcoming DLC that we've got. Excuse me, hopefully later
on
this
the
fall.
horizon.
You could say that. You could. I wish you hadn't, but you could. So, yeah, I mean, that game is obviously gorgeous and has a really solid gameplay loop for the most part. I think some of the robots get annoying just because of how vulnerable you are and how just not even overpowered they are. Just like some of their attacks, like they can jump 50 feet and you have no idea how to, like, you really don't have any good way of getting out of the way properly. Like, even if you
do you feel kind of small sometimes? Like, some of the robots are just so, like, large that, like, you can try to dodge, but it's kind of like Dark Souls, where even when you dodge, you know, the enemy is just so big that you still get hit, right?
And not only that, but, like, they'll jump up in the air and cover so much space in such a short amount of time, but then they'll also be swinging their tail around as they're coming down, so they're just covering such a large amount of space that you can dodge roll 2 or 3 times and still be within their attack range. So that gets on my nerves quite a bit. And then you die so quickly in that game, even if you have good armor. So even
it is unforgiving.
So that can be frustrating. And I think that will be ironed out in the sequel, maybe even this DLC pack. But I'm working my way through the story, and you know, it is an interesting story, but unfortunately, I do think it gets kind of predictable in the overall storyline, like where it's going. You kind of get, I mean, really, you could even kind of get, and I think a lot of people did, just from the trailers, you kind of figure out what's going on in this world and what has happened to bring us to this point. So that is somewhat disappointing, but I don't think it's a bad story. It's just a little bit predictable, I guess. So yeah, I've been playing Horizon and been watching some movies. We were talking about Edge of Tomorrow before the show, which I found out was based off a manga with a very cool name, All You Need Is Kill, which is one of those Japanese things where they kind of like, it doesn't really make sense in English, but it still sounds cool.
Yeah.
So I dig that. But yeah, I enjoyed that movie. That's some good sci-fi action, very intense. And I really like the alien design in that one. And kind of weird because they're called mimics, and then in the video game Prey, they have a version of their aliens called mimics, and they look super fucking similar. So I mean, it's almost like plagiarism levels of similar. So that's kind of weird, but just a little side note there.
I doubt that manga was the first thing to have. I think that's a concept that's probably been around since sci-fi first was a genre. I think that's a pretty easy...
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying the actual look of the aliens in the movie, and then they're literally have the same name in Prey, and they actually do look a lot alike in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little janky. I want to give a huge shout out, speaking of great sci-fi, I want to give a huge shout out to Neil Blomkamp's new studio, Oats Studios. He's basically doing these short films that he puts out on YouTube, and he's also got some short comedy videos and stuff like that. But the main draw here is these like 20 to 30 minute short films, of which there are 3 right now. Raqqa, with starring Sigourney Weaver. The second one is called Firebase, and then the third one just came out yesterday, starring Dakota Fanning, called Zygote. And if you're a fan of Neil Blomkamp, District 9, Elysium, and Chappie are the 3 movies he's directed. If you're a fan of Alien or the Alien franchise, you know, sci-fi horror and stuff like that, this is the type of stuff for you. It is really good sci-fi. It is a lot of times really good sci-fi horror. Really awesome special effects in these movies. I mean, obviously, even District 9 back in the day had great special effects, so you can kind of expect that from Neil. Unfortunately, he was gonna be doing a really cool version of Alien 5 that really never got put together as far as the production cycle, so it seems like that is canceled. And also, we just unfortunately lost Bill Paxton within the last year. He was going to be a big part of that, but this is kind of a next best thing, I guess you could say. And so I just want to give a little spotlight to that. Definitely check that out, especially if you're into sci-fi. So, loving the new Oats Studios short films.
Nice.
And they're a little weird side note is they're putting their all of their 3D CG assets. They're putting them on Steam, and you can go out and buy them and use them yourself. And that is going to help them fund further projects. So that's a cool thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's smart. Smart way to get additional funding. I think that's everything we've been playing. Let's hop into the news. First bit of news here is sad, but I think it's smart. Ni no Kuni 2 has been delayed to 2018. It was originally intended to come out November 10th, and it was actually a game that I was going to be buying on day one. It's coming out on PC as well as PS4. Obviously, I don't have a PS4. It's been delayed to January 19th, so just a couple of months. I mean, we don't have too much to say about this. We can talk a little bit about it. I think it's a smart move. This holiday's packed, and I think Ni no Kuni 2 will probably be a great game, but it's one of those games that will probably not see the limelight. It'll probably have good critical response, but like with all the other games coming out, it'll probably not even be talked about right. So yeah. I think moving to January is pretty smart. It's not too far of a move. Yeah, what do you guys think?
So this is very similar to what happened with Gravity Rush 2 last year.
Oh yeah, good point.
Moving from the end of 2016 into the beginning of this year, 2017, and unfortunately for Gravity Rush, they didn't really save themselves by jumping out of a crowded fall, because they jumped right back into the lion's den that is Q1 2017. As we all know, it's been fucking insane. So it didn't work out so well for Gravity Rush, but I do think it will work out fine for Ni no Kuni, especially looking at, I'm pretty sure this is almost the exact date of the North American release of Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch. I think it was like January 13, January 18, somewhere around there. Maybe 2013, I think, is the year it came out. So I think this is probably for the best for this game, whether or not it has anything to do with the actual development time that it needs. And yeah, I'm totally still day one. Are you still day one, or is this affecting your purchasing decision, Jared?
This actually makes it a lot easier for it to be day one, because this fall I'm like, I really want to get Ni no Kuni day one, man, but there's so many other things I need to buy on top of getting a Switch and everything. I'm like, it's very hard for me to spend money. I hate spending money, and I'm like, but I really want Ni no Kuni, and then now I'm like, I'm looking at January, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably gonna be the only game I buy in January. Cool, I'm good, you know.
Yeah. Well, don't speak too soon, because it could be stacked before we know it.
Yeah, but so I obviously I do this thing for us that where I list all of the video game release dates for the upcoming year and then next year and everything. And so far the only thing like confirmed for January is Ni no Kuni 2. And looking at everything the way they've been listed, there's only a couple of games that say like Q1 or very early 2018. The only things I think could be put in January are
Far Cry.
One of the what do you say?
It already has a release.
Far Cry is February 27th.
February?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are one of the PlayStation exclusives, and for me that doesn't change anything for me because I don't have a PlayStation. You know what I mean? So me looking at the list, I doubt there's anything that's going to get in there. Maybe A Way Out, depending on what they decide with that. But yeah, I know you probably have not too much to say about it, right, Dom? Because it's not really a game in your neighborhood.
Yeah. It looks cool. No, I mean I think it's actually fascinating because I didn't realize I did watch a gameplay video just a couple of minutes I think a week ago, and I didn't realize they completely switched the combat, so it's real time now.
Yeah,
it's no longer a turn-based game, which is a big deal. I mean, I don't know if I like that better or worse. I kind of would have been more intrigued had it stayed turn-based, just because I don't know.
From what I've played with the first game, I understand why they would change
time.
it. Yeah.
It was like more active time battle than turn-based, but it was obviously closer to turn-based than real time.
Well, and the thing too is like we have all these games now that try to go for like crazy graphic fidelity and look the realest that they can and stuff like that. And to me, I think two of the prettiest games that are coming out the next year are Cuphead and Ni no Kuni 2, just because they don't look like they're going for realism or anything. Like Cuphead looks like an early Disney animated film, obviously. Or short, and then Ni no Kuni 2 looks like a Studio Ghibli film. Like, I just think they look so different from everything, and they're so polished, you know? I just love the artistic style for those games, so...
So, since you brought that up, I just want to say it'll be interesting to see how that goes with the whole Ghibli thing, Jared, because obviously they helped Level 5 make the first game. They were intimately involved, and which is really cool that Studio Ghibli even, made a game, a giant JRPG in the first place, an awesome one at that. But they aren't involved in this one, so it'll be interesting to see if it doesn't look as good or if it.
Everything I've seen, they've
suffers.
released.
I don't think
the
I'm
look will
worried,
suffer. I think the story might, but everything we've seen from gameplay and cutscenes and stuff, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty on par. I think the writing might be where it might suffer, or it might be better, or it might be worse. We just don't know. I think that's more
it's
likely
probably just
to
not
change.
Going to have that special Ghibli
touch
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next story here is a combination of a couple of stories that I want to talk about. The first one being Blizzard. Basically, we've heard about Overwatch League. We even talked about it, I think, last year when it was first announced. It was their esports league that they're handling a lot different. If you're not familiar with the way esports leagues work currently, is that there's these private organizations that essentially buy a sports team. They go out there and they find talent in a certain game, and they recruit that talent to their team. So a team has a roster, if you're familiar with sports. And then they just try to battle to get in through tournaments into the main league for that game, be it the International for Dota or League of Legends Championship or anything like that. The way Overwatch League basically stated how they were doing things is that they wanted teams to represent cities. So instead of it being individual organizations, it's going to be organizations based in certain cities. So New York will have a team, Los Angeles will have a team. That's how it was originally pitched. In the last couple of days, they recently announced that it's official, and we have some of the teams. So in their blog post, they wrote, in the United States, the city of Boston has been claimed by Robert Kraft, chairman and CEO of the Kraft Group and the New England Patriots. Pretty big. That's a major sports owner there, one of the most successful sports franchises, much to my chagrin, that has a team, right? 200 miles to the south, Jeff Wilpon, co-founder and partner of the Sterling VC, who basically owns part of the New York Mets, will be having the New York City team. Along with these owners from the traditional sports world, we welcome 3 established esports organizations. San Francisco has been snapped up by Andy Miller, the chairman of NRG. If you're not familiar with NRG, they're one of the most successful esports franchises. They have teams in League, Dota, and Smite, and obviously CSGO and stuff like that. Los Angeles has been secured by the Immortals, and Misfits have locked down Miami. There's other teams in Shanghai, China, as well as Seoul, South Korea. They have teams there that represent brands or teams from those respective places. I want to talk to you guys about this real quick. I think the first part of this is more interesting to me than the middle part. Like, it's cool that these cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles and Miami are going to have teams. It kind of disappoints me that they're based on esports organizations that already encompass other games. I like the approach of, Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, they don't have any stakes in any other esports. They're making an Overwatch team, and it's going to be the Boston Overwatch team, and I think that's cool because it will only be associated with Overwatch, and that's for the time being. Obviously, if they're successful, they'll probably extend to other things. But what do you guys think about this? Now that it's tangible, now that Overwatch League is going to be kicking off, do you think we talked about before, these city-based teams, do you think this is cool that these major sports owners are dipping their toe in video games, in esports?
Yeah, I think obviously esports globally are gigantic. There's no doubting that, even if we're not necessarily into them that much. But I do think this is a big step for American esports and them being accepted and respected the way they probably deserve to be. I don't enjoy watching esports or enjoy being involved in that scene, but I do think it is interesting nonetheless, and it is something that obviously takes talent and people enjoy watching. Large groups of people enjoy watching, so I'm glad to see it happening.
Yeah. Dom, I have a question for you before you hop in.
Yeah.
So me and you are probably more into sports than Jordan, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dom, the thing that I always have that I feel is a bother is that when people talk about esports taking off and all of these things taking off, they always talk about this needs to be huge. Everybody needs to know about this, but I don't think that's necessarily the case, right? Because, for instance, the NHL is a huge organization, right? Professional Hockey League. They make a ton of money. They're doing really well. I don't watch NHL. I have no interest in watching a hockey game. I've never even thought about buying any hockey merch, watching a game, learning about it, going to a game, anything like that. but it still survives and it has a dedicated audience, right? Same thing. The NFL is kind of like weird because it's like the biggest sport in the United States, and it kind of transcends all of that. It's kind of how football is in England or in Europe in general. But like we have these like more niche pro scenes for sports that exist, right? And not everybody's interested in them. Not everybody has a team they root for. Not everybody watches it. So I just don't understand the hang up of people being like, no, if esports is going to take off, it needs to be gigantic. And the thing that I think esports has over sports that we have, like the NFL isn't huge in a lot of other countries. You know what I mean? So
right.
I just want to hear what you think about this, Dom, considering you're a pretty big sports guy like myself.
Yeah, you really do kind of... You can... I don't want to say stop the comparison with real sports, but certainly, stop the expectations compared to real sports, because it's just not... It's just so fundamentally different, right? Like,
yeah.
Football is the same game that's being played for 100 years, right? And will always be played the same way with, minor tweaks along the way, but it's the same game. The most successful video games will be played in esports for, 10 years maybe, if they're really good, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a new game, right? Because people get into this sport. I think we talked about this before, that people, like you just said, you don't like hockey, but you do like football or basketball or whatever. You're into that sport, right?
Yeah.
So you had to also be into each video game itself, not just gaming, right? Because the games that people play esports of, I don't care about any of them at all, right?
Yeah.
Now, layered on top of that is I don't really like watching other people play video games to begin with, but they have to at least be games that I'm interested in, right? Otherwise, it's irrelevant. So that's like, if there were no sports I'd be interested in, I'm not going to watch them. Yeah. So you can't compare it to real sports in any form of expectations. Yeah. It's just not. But you're right that it still can find a good niche and be really successful. And this is a good start to the original question that, this is a cool way to get some attention. Like, oh, Robert Kraft, and he's like probably the most... He's an owner that's on everyone's minds recently, right? Now they're the Patriots, and then they got their other things going on with deflating balls and whatever else.
Exactly.
So this is the right step, I think.
Well, and I think the other thing too that we need to talk about is you made a great point that, like, obviously sports teams like football, basketball, hockey, they've been sports that have been around forever. They're going to be the same way with minor tweaks. With esports, like you said, Overwatch will probably be, if it's super successful, 15 years max, and that's even pushing it, right?
Right.
The thing that lends themselves to that is making these teams that are based on cities, because it's all about local support of teams. Even if you don't care about it, there's going to be people who see the Michigan Tracers, and they're going to be like, I don't know what the hell this game is, but I like stuff that says Michigan on it because I'm from Michigan and I love to support the state I'm from, and it's a cool logo, and people do that.
I think where you got to go is more along the lines of the Olympics, right? Where you have the Boston Bombers or whatever, and right now they just have an Overwatch team. But maybe next year the Boston Bombers, I don't know why I'm saying Bombers, but that's what they're called in my head right now. They also get a Counter-Strike team and a League team, all under the same name of Boston. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing that's different, is because we currently have those organizations that do that, where they have a team in each esport. But the reason it's not reaching these top-level popularity, and they're pretty popular, don't get me wrong, but like the reason they're not getting to the next level, I think, is because they're not tied to cities. They're tied to organizations that's kind of...
Because what the fuck is NRG, right? I don't know.
Exactly. You're more likely to have people support an organization that represents a city than an organization that just is an organization that represents itself, right? So... And
we just talked all the way through it. I think we're all in agreement that, well, this isn't our thing. They're doing the right thing for them.
Well,
right?
Yeah, and think about this, like, especially with like Robert Kraft and the guy who's part of the Mets owning these teams, they know how to market those teams, right? They're owners of successful sports teams. Maybe not win-wise with the Mets, but like, as far as merchandise and stuff. And they're going to get like really great logos. They're going to probably come up with a name. Like, I think the merch and everything around it's going to be great. And I think that Robert Kraft is a guy who likes to win. We've seen that. It's pretty evident. He's going to want to make sure that this team wins and isn't just existing. So I think the inclusion of the other international teams is great too. Like Shanghai being involved is great. And from a political level, I think that's great as well, because it shows us having ties with other countries and doing something, whereas a lot of our sports are insular. There's not an NFL team outside of the United States. There's not I was going to say NHL, that's wrong. An NBA team outside of the United States except for the Raptors. So I think having these international teams, because like Yeah, Canada's international, but it's like second America, you know? Like, it's not crazy or anything.
America's hot.
Exactly.
Jared throwing shade.
Yeah, so I think this is cool. The second part that I want to talk about regarding the Overwatch news, and this is something you guys probably don't have anything to touch on because, like, you guys aren't super familiar with Overwatch. But Doomfist is a new character that was announced, finally announced. There was rumors that he was going to be voiced by Terry Crews. He's not. On the surface, that would have been a cool thing, but the fact that they constantly update voice lines and stuff, that dude's super busy. I doubt they would want to pay the fees he charged or stuff like that, you know? Maybe he'll be in the future. He'll be a character or something. I don't know. But anyways, we've been having this character teased ever since Orisa was released, who was like the weird Ox Centaur robot thing that was created. The reason I want to talk about Doomfist is he has really cool abilities and stuff like that, but what he means to Overwatch as far as like the lore moving forward and the universe moving forward. So did you guys ever watch the original Overwatch release trailer where they're fighting in that museum?
Yep.
No.
The gauntlet was the main prize in that trailer. It's one of the first things we see in the universe of Overwatch is this gauntlet that whoever wears it becomes a Doomfist. So Doomfist isn't a person, it's the person wielding the Doomfist, if that makes sense. So there have been multiple people that have worn the Doomfist and become Doomfist. So he's been a character that wasn't even planned to be in the game, but because of all the fan fervor and people wanting him to exist, Blizzard went ahead and created him into an actual character. He was never meant to be a character in the game. They've stated that because they have a long plan of characters they want to make, and Doomfist was just something to get to the point in the trailer, right? What I want to get to with him is he's the first true villain or bad guy in Overwatch, which I think is really smart and really important. If you're not familiar with Overwatch, there's Talon who are the bad guys, Overwatch who are the good guys. Overwatch are the heroes. They want everything to be peaceful. Talon believes that the only way humans can evolve is through chaos. There you go. There's your plot point. A lot of Talon, though, they aren't necessarily villains. They're more anti-heroes. A lot of them were on Overwatch. Stuff happened. Now they crossed them. So they're kind of like grudgy, revengey anti-heroes or villains, right? Not really a true bad guy. They have vendettas or they have like weird tie-ups in their stories. Doomfist is the first bad guy. Like, his motivation is to be a bad guy. In the announcement trailer for him, in his animation, he's seen almost essentially killing Tracer. He removes her thing that affects her, because you know how she can go forward and backwards through time. Her chrono accelerator, I believe is what it's called. He rips that off of her and essentially puts her in a never-ending time loop. So she's basically dead to the world at that point. So he's like a bad guy. He clashes with Winston, who's the big gorilla character. But like, I think that's very important to a world where you're trying to build these characters that are so beloved. It's great to have all these characters people love, but I think for something to really work and for people to be really invested, you need to have somebody that people hate. You know, there's going to be some people who love him, but you need to have a character that people can point to and be like, I hate that guy, you know? And Overwatch hasn't really had that. And I think Doomfist is great for the lore. And I know you guys aren't too familiar with Overwatch, but what do you guys think about where I'm coming from, where I feel that you need to have like a true bad guy, like somebody that is pure evil to have your lore and your world be successful and stuff like that? I want to hear your guys' opinion.
I concur.
I concur as well. But I also have a question for you, Jared.
Okay.
And this is relevant to the conversation. It's been something I'm thinking about a lot when it comes to Overwatch.
Legos.
When you get a new skin,
Okay.
for an Overwatch character, does that affect their moveset?
No.
Or is it just aesthetic?
It's just aesthetic. It doesn't affect their moveset because a game like Overwatch is purely based on competition, so it needs to be as balanced as it can. So I think for logistic reasons, they don't change movesets because that's a whole nother set of moves you have to tweak, right? Before heroes come out, so they're announced, and then they have a public test server that people play them on for weeks before they're actually released to the public because there's so much balancing that goes into a character, right? And people are still going to complain that a character's overpowered or underpowered. Some skins actually change voice lines and like the actual voice that's coming out, which is really cool, but no movesets are ever changed.
So that's my question, because people freak out all the time about buying new skins for characters, and I'm thinking, wait, if it doesn't change your moveset, even if they give you new dialogue lines, it's a first-person game, so really all you're looking at is the person's arms or maybe a gun, something hanging off their body, whatever it may be, and so I just don't understand the fervor around Overwatch character skins.
Yeah, I think it's owning that character. Like, so whenever you watch something or you interact with something, people fall in love with characters, right? For instance, we've all seen Spider-Man. I don't know if you saw it, Dom, but like,
Not yet. Don't
so
spoil it.
I'm not going to spoil it, but like Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure your ideal perfect suit for Spider-Man is different than mine, Jordan's. Maybe they're not too different, but I think there's some slight tweaks as to what we consider our favorite Spider-Man costume, right?
Yeah.
For a character like Namor, deep cut, I don't care about Namor. You don't care about Namor. I'm pretty sure in the back of our mind we don't care. We don't have a default.
Whoa! Namor's my motherfucking dude.
Well, I like Namor.
You talking about fake ass Aquaman over here? That's my dude.
Yeah. So we don't have like a default. This is what Namor needs to look like, right? I talked about Injustice. Injustice 2. One of my favorite things to do in that game is to mess with the gear and make the Batman that I want. Make him look the way I want.
Right, but you can actually see his character model when you're playing.
Yes, but that's the thing is you can emote and do stuff to where you can pull out to third person and see your character. I do agree with you that's weird because it's mostly in first person, but there are instances where you can see your person. And a lot of it too is like you knowing that somebody else can see you in that skin, not so much you seeing yourself in that skin, which is kind of weird. And also, like, there's kill cams where you pull out to third person and you can see what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just, like, spirit, too, because, like, during the Christmas event, there was Christmas-based skins, so knowing that you're in, like, you're Tracer and you're, like, in an elf costume is, like, pretty funny and really cool if you're really in love with Tracer because, like, you're playing during Christmas in a snow map, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time on Overwatch. We can talk about it for days. But yeah,
Well,
I do agree
yeah,
with
I
you
just
that
needed that cleared up.
the fervor is weird because some people get like super crazy about it. For me, it's like, oh, cool. I don't have to stare at the same character model. There's something different that on the screen. Especially if it's a character you love, you'll get tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. You know, so just slightly tweaking it is cool. But some people get way too crazy about it.
How much does the skin cost?
Skin. So you can't. And I might be wrong about this because they might have changed in a recent update. You can't buy skins individually; they have to come in the boxes. And
oh, so you're just buying fucking loot packs? Jesus.
Exactly. But you earn the boxes in game like really quick. And they're actually changing it. They recently changed it to where they lowered the percentage of you getting duplicate items in chests because people were complaining about that, and they said, okay, we'll fix it. So they lowered the chance of you getting duplicate items in chests as well. But you also earn gold. And you can use that gold to buy skins outright. So there's 3 different tiers of skins. There's the basic ones, the mid-level rarity ones, and the super rare ones, right? The super rare ones cost 4,000 gold. The mid-level ones cost like 15 to 25. And these are, I know for a fact the most expensive ones cost 4,000. I don't remember the prices of the other ones off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And 4,000 gold is not a lot. Like, it seems like a lot, but if it's a game like Overwatch where it's probably your main game you're playing, you can earn that in 4 days. You know? Like, it's not bad. Okay. And those are like epic skins. Those are like, you know, cream of the crop. Cream of the crop. So the last 2 news stories here. It's running kind of long. Actually, you know, we're going to skip the last 2 stories. We're going to talk about PlayStation 5 analyst and the new Xbox apparently is being designed and stuff like that. We can talk about it when there's real information. We'll skip that for now because we're running a little long. Let's get into the topics. You want to go first? Jordan, you want to talk about simulation theory?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. And as we get into this topic, I'll just go ahead and give you a loose definition of what we're talking about here. Simulation theory is something that was really brought into the mainstream with the release of The Matrix, the original Matrix film, towards the beginning of this century. Or was it 99? I think the original Matrix was the end of the 90s. But anyways, simulation theory is basically the theory that the reality that we exist within is actually a digital simulation, a very high-powered, very intricate digital simulation.
Okay.
And Jordan, 1999 is correct. Matrix 1999.
Okay. Yeah. So, turn of the century, you might say. And so with simulation theory, like I said, it was popularized with The Matrix. Obviously, that's a lot of what that movie is about, is the fact that blue or red pill, you can take one to see the true nature of your reality, which is the fact that you're living in a controlled simulation, or you can just decide to, continue on into this fake reality that you're in and just be blissfully unaware, I guess. So the reason that I bring this up on this specific podcast is because I've been thinking about it a lot with the advent of VR. And then also it kind of ties into how good games are looking nowadays, because we look at something like Destiny, or I guess a better example would be like Metal Gear Solid 5, right? Because that takes place in the real world. Obviously, there's all kinds of magical stuff, crazy stuff going on, but it does take place in Africa, in a tangible place that you can see. And it's a gorgeous game running in the Fox engine. Very realistic looking, but what it is what a lot of games are these days, which is hyper realism. It actually looks better than reality. It has a little more shine to it, a little more sheen, that glint on your eye, if you will. And so with games looking as good as they do nowadays, let's say non-VR games, because VR games don't necessarily look as good as something like Horizon Zero Dawn, for example. With games looking as realistic or even hyper-realistic as they do, and then the advent of VR, where you are literally putting a headset on and, venturing into a whole new world, virtual reality, as it were. And we even see these peripherals that are kind of trickling out, or that are not necessarily consumer technology yet, but they are being worked on, where it's like full body VR, right? Where it's like mapping the entirety of your body through a suit, or something that you stand in, or whatever. I can't remember what it's called, but there's one that's like a circular kind of stand that you are in the middle of, with a rounded base, and so you can run inside of it, and you're not going to like run out of it, because it can twist you around, so that this rounded base that you're in, this like basin style thing, it feels like you're actually running, even though you're running in place.
If you've seen it, you've probably seen the gif of the guy running with a gun in his hands. That's the way that thing's always shown, is that same gif of that guy running with the gun in his hands in that like sphere thing.
Right. This is something that you'd see at like CES or one of those big electronic trade shows.
Like some of the rides at like Universal Studios or whatever.
Right. Yeah. This isn't necessarily a brand new concept. This is stuff that we've seen before. And so I'll go ahead and put this out there. I live by the quote, a smart man knows he knows nothing. And so with that being said, I think that I don't know what the nature of our reality is down to a T, but I'm certainly willing to be open to the fact that we might be in a very high-powered and ultra high-resolution simulation. So I think that's interesting in the fact that with the advent of better-looking games and virtual reality, augmented reality, and all different types of things, like that in this video game industry, I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on some of that, because when I see VR and I see us walking into these new realities, or I see a game like Horizon Zero Dawn that just literally takes my breath away with how beautiful it is, it at least gets me down that path of thinking about these things and whether or not it could be real. And really, I think, well, if Horizon looks this good, and the VR, even though it's in its kind of first iteration, at least looks believable, then, in 100 years, it's really not conceivable that we'll have like a virtual reality simulation that you can't tell a difference from, your own base reality to stepping into that. If someone had like taken away your recent memory or whatever, and you just wound up in this virtual simulation without really knowing what was going on. So, thoughts, gentlemen?
So your next logical step, I like where you're going, kind of like free form here with this topic, but if I'm thinking, the next step in VR, 100 years from now is like the movie Avatar. Fuck that movie, by the way. But where you're just getting in a little chamber, basically, and then you're controlling something else, whether that's virtual. I can't remember the how that movie actually worked, if the blue things were actually
Having sex
real.
with your hair and such, yeah.
Yeah, but something along those lines. And there was another movie, can't remember what it was called, Gamer or Game
Yeah,
something.
with Gerard Butler, yeah.
And Michael
Yeah,
C.
where-
Hall? Am I thinking of the same one?
Maybe Michael
I
C.
don't know if he
Dexter,
was in-
that
I
guy,
know
Yeah, he
Gerard
was in
was
The
the
Gamer or
star.
Gamer. He was in a movie called Gamer or The Gamer.
something like that. The,
Anyways.
the essence of it was that pretty much everyone in the world would just get in their VR systems and interact with each other that way.
Yeah.
I can't remember what else the plot was going on, but yeah, it was the same kind of thing. And I think that's the next logical step. You see it going. I don't want to get into it, but you see it already starting to happen in. God, I can't talk today. With, like you mentioned, like full body simulations, where you can walk in any direction and the treadmill is going to automatically move around you.
Yeah, I was
And
going to
then
bring up the movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis, where you literally
Yep,
lay
that's the other
down,
one.
kind of like an Animus-style table, and you don't move your body at all, but you live your life through another body, essentially.
And so then we're going to get to the point where you're just going to end up living in a pod, kind of like Wall-E style, like being fed nutrients through a tube, but then actually living your life in whatever virtual reality you please, I guess. I don't know. Without getting into the morality of it, I think that's kind of interesting. But
And the cool thing is, like, you don't even... How are you going to handle respawning or stuff like that, if you die? So I'm going off of this topic, Jordan. I'm, like, really neurotic, so I'm always in my head, so I've thought about this stuff. Like, I've had multiple thoughts of, like, well... Is this like a multiverse situation where I'm in the multiverse where I'm the main character and there's other multiverses for each individual person where they're the main character? Or is it like...
Which is not nihilism, but... crap. What is the word I'm thinking of? Keep going, I'm sorry.
Or like my other thoughts is like, what if this is just a really advanced game of like Civilization or something? You know what I mean? Or like,
yeah, there's basically objective reality is what you're talking about. Like,
exactly.
The reality that I observe exists through me because I allow it to exist.
Exactly. And also, well, there's that whole concept of that in going into Elder Scrolls of like Kim and stuff like that, of like you transcend your existence when you realize you don't exist, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like a whole. It's a whole thing. But yeah, that's a whole another story about Elder Scrolls, which is that whole
The
story is
easy
fascinating.
allies.
Yeah. Because I have this thought all the time of this stuff for like, there's a whole theory of like, growing up, you always consider yourself the main character of your story, right? Obviously. But people say it's a really weird out-of-body experience that sometimes you can meet people in your life and they're not necessarily celebrities, but like just something about them, like you're like, oh, I'm not the main character, they are. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, whoa, weird. And going to the whole point of like the reality of the situation of where we're going to go from here is like, there's going to come a point where something needs to be facilitated because it can be dangerous. They've already done studies of people being in virtual reality and stuff like that for extended periods of time. We've talked about it, of like them going crazy or having weird mental issues, right? Because we're not used to that. But I think over the course of time we'll get used to it. The people that are afraid of AI can use this as a thing of like, well, yeah, there's going to come a point where AI runs the world, and essentially they put all humans in the thing, like Don was saying, of like they feed us nutrients and we just live these artificial lives in these virtual realities, and they're just controlling everything around us, and they literally have like human farms where we're just there living our lives, and they just...
Which is like the Matrix where Neo pulls the plug out and he's in the Jello pod or whatever.
Exactly, and we're at that point. But then there's the whole discussion of like, you can say you're not living a life, but aren't you? If it's real enough to you and you can't tell the difference, then it is a life then, right?
Ignorance
That's a whole
is
conversation.
bliss.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, it's fascinating. I think there's gonna come a point where a lot of these questions are gonna need to be answered, and going off of the VR thing is like we've talked about, is the best things about VR and the future for VR have nothing to do with video games, and it's going to be interesting how far we take that tech. And we've had a lot of morality issues that kind of stall scientific progress, and it's going to be interesting to see at what point those questions come up. We've had that stuff with cloning or genetic manipulation,
stem cells,
exactly, like all that stuff. There's going to come a point where morality, with or without religion, is going to question the progress of virtual reality or augmented reality, and we're going to have to deal with that when that comes. So yeah, cool topic.
The only counterpoint I'd offer that is I don't know if we'll make it to that point anyway. I think we might end up extinct before we have to answer those questions. But
yeah.
So first of all, I just want to say I'm really pleasantly surprised with how open to this topic you guys were. I know we're mostly open-minded individuals, but you could certainly present this to some people and they'd be like, "Screw you, man! Like this is stupid. What do you?"
Hell no! I'm voting for Kid Rock. Stop talking to me about this.
Oh my god!
Moving to Michigan, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then I want to kind of close this by saying this. Since you were talking about how you like to jump in your head, Jared, and kind of think these things through, really trippy thought line that I've gone down is that what if we're in this constant loop where we're just we're basically going into these high-powered virtual simulations, building up technology within those simulations to the point of getting a virtual reality that does feel real, going into a new simulation, then building up technology in that simulation to where we are finally able to go into another simulation. We're like just constantly in this loop. I just think that'd be crazy.
You saying that reminds me of, I had this weird thought too of, so obviously I'm not a religious person in terms of I don't follow a religion, but religion does intrigue me, and I've studied religion, right? Like it does intrigue me, the whole concept of it. And one of the rabbit holes I went down thinking about this stuff is like, well, what if reincarnation is based on something in reality, whereas if we're in a simulation, reincarnation is essentially you finishing that game with that person, whether that be through your own accord of dying of old age or dying early from a freak accident, and you're getting reincarnated into a new body, into a new life, because it's the next simulation. Yeah, exactly. So you're just moving on from person to person. And that's why there's like deja vu and all that kind of stuff like that. And what if like people going to heaven is essentially them kind of remembering their best simulation they've ever had? You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, well, heaven is everything you enjoy and everything that you love, and what if that's just the best simulation you ever had, or like the end game? I don't know. It's a whole thing. It's a whole rabbit hole we can go down. And like you said, there's some people that are closed-minded to this stuff, but I think it's cool. Like, why not talk about it? What's the big issue? It's like it's obviously what
just
if,
because
like,
with some people, especially if you are religious, and you're I'm coming in questioning the nature of your reality, then it's like that's making people uncomfortable or
they're the people that are like, how did we evolve from monkeys when monkeys are still around? And you're like, well, I'll see you later. Bye.
It is something that kind of can push you out of your comfort zone, because the nature of your reality is like kind of everything we have at the end of the day.
Well, and I think, I mean, I'm not trying to generalize or have a blanket statement here, but I think atheist or agnostic people, I think, are probably more open to this conversation than religious people. And like I said, I'm not trying to generalize. There's probably a ton of religious people who are open to the conversation, but if you were to put 100 atheist or agnostic people and then 100 religious people and poll them on this, you'll probably have a higher percentage for atheist agnostic, and that might be ignorant speaking, but
they haven't made a decision yet.
Exactly, so they're open to the possibilities. So we went kind of long here. I want to close out with something I've been wanting to do when we were all back on the podcast, and this is really simple. We don't need to go too deep into it or converse about it too much. I just want to go over some predictions for the next year. So they're going to be multi-part questions. They're probably more than likely, I'm looking through them, yes or no, and then a fill in the blank, right? So I'm going to go through them. I want you guys to give me your answers. So the first question here, will IO Interactive be purchased by any publisher, and if so, who? My answer is yes, and I think it's going to be Microsoft. So what are your guys' predictions?
No.
No, okay.
I think no, because they... Sorry, were you going to give an explanation, Dom?
No, I just think no. Just no.
Okay. I'd say no because they've, just gone through this kind of
tumultuous,
arduous, this arduous process getting out from under Square Enix, which, that's a whole other conversation about how Square Enix has handled their Western properties over these last few years, which they were really trying to get into, and now they're really not. So there's that. But I think now that IO owns their IP, this, really pretty iconic video game franchise, and they're a decent sized studio, even though they did downsize with this a little bit. I think that they're going to want to stay that way for a while, but they may make contracts, I think, to basically become a second party and just we're only going to release on PlayStation or Xbox.
Okay, next question. This one again, you just need to pick one of the three, and then that's it. And you can give me extra information if you want. But so PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, Switch. Which one will have the largest price drop by E3 next year?
Xbox One X.
Yeah, that's what I said too. I said $50. I said the others won't have price drops.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. The Switch is about as cheap as it gets.
Oh yeah.
And so I could see if price drop, maybe if they decide to come out with a new model or something, but it's just not going to be percentage wise as much. And then
the Pro has no reason to drop its price. Like
not until they get into PS5 territory.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'll agree. Yeah. Xbox One X, especially since people are so up in arms. Not understandably so, since they're getting 4K at 60 FPS sometimes. But yeah. That'll be it.
I'm assuming both of you guys think it'll be $50 too, or do you guys think it'll be a different price drop?
Yeah, I'd say 50 for the first one. You know, it might
50
end up being $100 cheaper by the end of its life cycle. But
okay, next one. This one's interesting. What game will get delayed until fall 2018? You could probably say GT Sport, even though it recently got a release date of October of this year. My choice is I said Red Dead Redemption 2. There's a lot of games you can probably put into that, like any of the quote-unquote Sony first-party exclusives that are all coming out in the first half, which I think is an absurd statement. It's like 4 exclusives
I wouldn't even...
you're going to have in the first 6 months. That's a lie. You're lying.
Like I said, man, somebody needs to cover up this summertime. Like, it's not a bunch of kids who are, you know, just available during the summertime. Like, people want to play games all year, so somebody needs to start, you know, spreading shit out.
So what's your guys' choice? What game will get delayed until fall 2018?
You know, like Far Cry certainly won't.
Red Dead, God of War.
The answer is...
Yeah, but see, that's not even a delay, though, because they've not set a date, right? Even God of War, they've said 2018, so...
Yeah.
No, but...
no, God of War...
Well, Sean Layden said that, like, candidly or something, right?
Well, but also Mr. Layden, he said that, you know, essentially confirmed that everything we showed at E3 this year will be out in the first half of 2018, and I just don't see, you know, David Cage and the guys at Quantic Dream getting that shit done. They just like to, you know, dig deep into their.
I'll let you guys count that. So if you want to say God of War, you can do that. If you want to say Detroit Become Human, you can say that too. I'm putting Jordan down for Detroit Become Human.
Red Dead.
Dumb. There's Far Cry. There's Red Dead.
Far Cry's not good.
The Crew 2.
That far.
Code Vein.
I mean, like,
A Way Out.
None of these games have, like, solid enough dates to where I'd consider that a delay anyway. I mean, Red Dead said spring, right? What is early? I mean,
all of them say early, though. Yeah, so... Early is in the first 6 months. I'm just saying delay. Don't read too much into it.
I'll say Red Dead.
If it's early, then fall isn't early. So if it comes out full, okay. Yeah, it's a hard thing, but whatever. We'll just deal with it. Next up, this one's an easy number question. How many Nintendo Directs will we have between now and next E3?
6.
Gosh, that's a tough one.
5. 5.
I said 3. 6, Dom. Okay.
6 is not crazy because sometimes they have an 8-minute Pokemon presentation.
I'm going 5.
I'd say
lock it in.
4.
Okay. So I'm at 3. Jordan's at 4. Dom's at 5. Next
also,
up.
I really hate to derail the show, but I just thought of something awesome. You have Red Dead Redemption, Undead Nightmare. What if with this one they have Shred Dead Redemption for the DLC, and you're playing on a skateboard?
Oh God. Next up. How many OG Xbox games will be backwards compatible by this time next year?
20? No. 10.
30. I'm going to say 30 plus, okay. But 30.
Dom? Okay, I said 15. Yeah. I think one a month plus a couple of extra Spicy Boys.
Spicy Boys!
Next up. Will PSX... Okay, at PSX this year, will we see Sucker Punch's game, The Last of Us 2,
just
both or neither? So will we see Sucker Punch's game, Last of Us 2, both or neither?
Both.
That's what I put too, Dom.
We don't see Sucker Punch's game at this fucking PSX. I swear to God.
Next up, we only have a couple more questions left, guys. 4 more. How many Wii U ports will release before next E3? Yes.
Well, it looks like we might have just got a leak of
Fire Emblem
Fates Complete
3DS
Edition.
port is what that is.
That's not a Wii U port, though.
Oh, good differentiation there, Jared. Good
how
job.
many Wii U ports? I said 2.
Say one more.
Which I might be. I'm going 2 because I think Mario Maker.
So-
I don't think Smash. I think Mario Maker and like another Wonderful 101.
I think just one more.
That tease from Platinum. So
I thought it was a Bayonetta tease from Platinum.
both. It was both. They had 2 images.
Wow.
They had one for Bayonetta and one for Wonderful 101.
Well, yeah, I definitely think you're getting Bayonetta.
Just one. Just Mario Maker.
How many do you say, Dom? Well, Jordan's going through. Okay.
I guess I'm going with 4 because if you're getting 2 from Platinum, I definitely think you're going to get another 2 from Nintendo. So
Yeah.
4.
And I do think there's some validity to the thought process of they're not announcing a port until the other port's out, because they did that with Kart, because Pokemon Tournament had to be done before that, but they waited for Kart to come out and they're like, okay, here's the next one. I just don't think they want to overload people with here's all these ports, you know. I think there's
Of
some
all the
validity
games to
Pokken
bring
Tournament.
over from Wii U that people really wanted but didn't get to play because they didn't have that console, like why Pokken?
Pokken Tournament would have been a good announcement if it was alongside Ultra Sun and Moon also coming to the Switch, but the fact that it's only
Yeah,
Pokken
very
Tournament is
true.
kind of garbage. Next up, game most likely to get
Okay,
delayed
here we
out
go.
of
Now we're in
2017. I'll tell you guys my answer.
Probably right.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I was thinking GT
a
Sport
good one?
or South Park, but I don't think South Park will get delayed again.
you know
and
Cooney.
GT Sport's an easy bear to
God
poke.
forbid South Park.
Good one. Any
Gosh,
ideas?
I wish I had my release date.
Yeah, rattle
list.
rattle
I can
them
tell you
off.
guys some games. I'll go through it real quick. Okay, I'm gonna go from August on. Tacoma, Hellblade, Lawbreakers, Agent of Mayhem, Sonic Mania, Madden 18, Absolver, Life is Strange prequel. I forgot what it was called. Destiny 2, Dishonored DLC, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Project Cars 2, Pokken Tournament, Cuphead, Battle Chasers Night War, Middle-earth Shadow of War, Evil Within 2, South Park Fractured Butthole, Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, Wolfenstein 2, Call of Duty, Crackdown 3, Super Lucky's Tale, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and that's pretty much everything for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think a lot of those are locks, man. I
Yeah.
really do.
Going through this, I think the Dishonored thing could maybe get
Yep,
pushed.
That's what I was gonna say.
Absolver
what I was
maybe,
gonna
because
say.
that game still doesn't look. I don't understand what that game is personally. And Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite looks rough, and I don't know if they might want to just delay that bad boy.
gonna say
'cause that game
Crackdown.
looks rough. Crackdown.
It's
Yeah.
coming out with the
That's
Xbox
why I think
One
it won't
X, man.
happen.
They gotta hit that.
On the last game I left off is what my pick is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That's my pick. Also, I left off Fire Emblem Warriors, which I figured that was a lock. It's a
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I'll go with the Dishonored DLC, even though, like, how are they not going to be able to produce a DLC pack
new game,
within
right?
a year of release of that game?
Well, but the head's leaving, so I don't think that'll affect it. I still think the game's coming out.
Well,
on
the head
time.
of he's the head of the Austin Arcane Studio, and Dishonored's made in Europe.
Oh, okay. I thought the one in Austin was the one that worked on Dishonored, and the one in Europe is the one that worked on Prey. I guess I had it backwards.
No, it's backwards. Harvey Smith is the one in charge of the Dishonored
You're right.
one.
Yeah. So question 9: how many games from PlayStation's E3 conference that didn't get solid dates will get them at PSX?
Most, I would say. So, what? How many do we have here?
Spider-Man, Detroit, God of War,
2.
Days Gone.
So,
That's
God
4.
of War, Days Gone. We'll get dates.
Yeah.
You said 2, Dom?
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think Spider-Man will get a date.
I think God of War
I went 2 as
definitely
well.
does.
Colossus.
Spider-Man probably not. I think that's going to end up. I think that ends up, like August, September next year, something like that.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, even if they end up getting delayed,
That's a good
if
point.
Sean Layden's saying all these games are coming out the first half of next year, then they're going to have release dates by that time.
I think
But this
God of
is
War
only
and
the
Shadow.
release date getting
Good point, good
shown
point.
at PSX.
Or if
not
the release date ends up
comes
being
out
true.
before then, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to say
Yeah.
2.
2. Yes, we're all on board 2. Last question. Which of these will have the lowest Metacritic score? The Crew 2, NBA Live 2018, We're
NBA
Fire Emblem
Live.
Warriors.
Kidding me?
NBA Live 2018.
I think I'm going to throw in
that's what
another
I chose
answer to this
too.
one. The Crew 2 is going to shock people critically. Throwing it out there. It's going to be great.
Okay.
I'll say we'll
I
average.
mean, Crew 1
8
was well
on
received,
Metacritic.
I think, so.
Lock it.
Okay.
And, like, how many fucking Warriors games have they made? Like,
That shit's all mediocre, I feel
they
like.
figured it out, right?
yeah,
yeah.
but they figured out how to make a 6, though, right?
Consistent 6, though.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
But they're usually never 4s, you know?
Yeah, it's like NBA Live is the easy call of like that one will probably suck. The other ones are like maybe, Crew 2 I think is definitely just the throw in of like I couldn't think of a third game, so I'm like the Crew 2.
All right. I got the 11th question.
I think that
right?
game will be good though.
Will
I
Kid
agree
Rock
with
be
you.
a Michigan senator? No, just kidding. Don't answer. Don't answer.
No. Hopefully not, please.
Will Dom vote for Kid Rock?
If it does,
since
then
he
that
is
means
a
that-
Michigan resident.
Yeah.
If he wins, then that means I'm not the main character of the storyline. That's called a callback,
boy.
boys. Okay, so
Jared is on point today.
let's close with the podcast. What we're going to be playing and stuff. Going to be continuing some Injustice 2, picking that up, playing some. I'm getting an itch to play through something. I don't know what it is, but I'm just having that feeling. I want to get into a media experience, so I'm going to try to figure out what I want to play.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And I might go back and watch Spider-Man: Homecoming a second time. I really like the movie.
Ooh.
We talked about this before the show. Jordan was saying like it's kind of crazy how people are like losing their minds. I agree with you there. I think it's a very good movie. I think it's the best Spider-Man movie. I still like Winter Soldier and Civil War and a couple of other Marvel movies ahead of it. But I do think it's a great movie. I might go watch that again. I might go watch War of the Planet of the Apes comes out this weekend, right? Or is that next weekend?
Yep.
And I was planning on seeing Baby Driver last week, and then at the last moment I decided not to. Not because I didn't want to watch the movie, it's just that I don't like spending money, so watching one movie was enough for me.
Yeah.
So I might watch Baby Driver. I'll pick something. I might watch something this weekend, and I'm thinking of actually going back and rewatching through the MCU. To be quite honest with you, I'm thinking of going back to the first Iron Man and watching through all of those. But
That's a fucking task.
that's not my priority. I'm gonna watch through season 6 of Game of Thrones before the premiere. So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Yes.
What about you guys?
Yes.
We're all gonna watch Game of Thrones season 7 premiere.
Yep,
Yeah.
big old premiere this
Yep.
weekend.
You'll probably hear about us talk about that without any spoilers next week. So.
Also, I'm going to see Planet of the Apes this weekend, and then just another shout out to a TV show, season 2 of Preacher, man, or Preacher as it's properly announced or pronounced. Preacher is a really interesting show. I've started reading the comic; it's very cool. But the show itself is really well done. I think the first season was really good. The second season is really great. So I'm really glad to see this show moving in the direction it is. Not only that, but it gets me very excited because obviously Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have a great track record, but now they also have a great track record with comic adaptations, which means that I have a lot more faith in their Invincible adaptation that'll be coming soon.
Hell yeah. I
So,
cannot wait for
very
that.
excited about that.
That's another comic
And,
I need to get back to. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. So, as far as games go, I've been meaning to get around to the old Crash Insane trilogy and 4K.
I think better come to Xbox. There's rumors and stuff. I mean, it better come this year. Like, I hope it's
Do
that
you
December
really
8th
want
date
it?
that's rumored, because... Oh,
It's one of those weird things,
yeah,
man.
it's-
They're
yeah,
Naughty
Dom,
Dog
I grew
games.
up-
I could
I
just
grew
shit
up
in a
with the
box
Crash
and mail
games.
it to
That's
you
like my
quicker
bread and
and
butter.
cheaper.
Jesus Christ.
No, I said I wanted the Crash remaster, not the Uncharted series.
Damn! Jared's on point!
No, Uncharted games are great. I just love Crash. And, like, that's a game that I grew up playing not only with myself, but with my sister, so there's a lot of nostalgia there, you know?
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful. You can say all this stuff about the gameplay not being great and stuff like that, but it's memories, dude. I think it's a lot of times when everyone talks about all these NES and SNES games being the greatest games ever made. I think it's a lot of nostalgia roasted in glasses, to be quite honest with you. And
Very
those are the
true.
glasses I'm wearing. in
Contact
Crash,
lenses,
so.
even better.
Oh, also, I just want to give a
That's
huge
right.
shout out to the Castlevania next Netflix series. Only 4 episodes, but so fucking good, man.
Got it queued
really
up.
gets me hyped on, just video game adaptations in general, because this is the way to fucking do it. They're going to have an 8-episode season 2, so I'm very excited
Jordan,
about that.
Adi Shankar doing the Assassin's Creed one for Ubisoft, dude.
That would be cool, man.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a thing. They announced it. I don't know if you missed the news.
An animated series?
Yeah, they announced that Adi Shankar is going to do the same thing for Assassin's Creed that they did with Castlevania, and Ubisoft basically paid him to do it. It's official. It's happening.
When did they announce this?
Last week. When Castlevania came out, they announced, it was like front page of IGN, Adi Shankar to create Assassin's Creed series, and it talks about like how Castlevania gave people a lot of hope, and Ubisoft basically were like, yeah, here's some money, make it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Assassin's Creed needs that shit because, I think the movie was decent. I loved the, past assassin scenes. I thought those were awesome. Of course, it was dumb that wasn't most of the movie. But if that franchise continues, whatever. But this guy obviously knows what he's doing. So
also,
thank you, Jared. That's
really quick too. I don't want to cut you off again. Did you know that there's a Splinter Cell movie in the works with Tom Hardy playing Sam Fisher, and the Division movie with Jake Gyllenhaal being the lead character?
Jesus.
I think Jake Gyllenhaal's a great actor.
Get an Uncharted movie
and I think Tom Hardy's a great actor. Michael Fassbender's a great actor, and the Assassin's Creed movie wasn't great, so I'm kind of worried. I'm like, oh, those are great names, but...
Well, and Jake Gyllenhaal with video game movies, Prince of Persia wasn't
exactly
so hot.
Exactly,
but,
yeah.
Also, I'll be playing Horizon.
So I'm going to go see Spider-Man for the first
Dom?
time this weekend. Then, of course, we got Game of Thrones. I'll keep watching Batman in my spare Timizzle. And what else? I'm going to keep playing Skyrim because it's what I do now.
Also, another thing I want to throw in, Dom, I know you're not a huge superhero guy. The cool thing with Spider-Man, I know it's probably an issue you have with the MCU or superhero movies in general, is like you go and watch it and there's all these references to other crap you don't even know what's going on. I think Spider-Man does
Easter eggs.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man does a great job of throwing in Easter eggs, and if you know them, great. If you don't, they're in it enough to be like, oh, I'm gonna Google that name. Who is that? Oh, got it. They're not overbearing or anything, which I think is really.
I
cool.
would recommend watching a YouTube video. IGN has a good one. Dom, after
certainly,
yeah, like a wrap up of here are the Easter eggs you missed.
Okay,
I like Spider-Man.
At least you're honest.
I just Spider-Man's it's good. It's a good one of the better spiders that are out there. So, looking forward to that.
He's a comfort.
My boy Michael Mando as Scorpion. Here we go.
Yeah. Comfort food is superheroes.
Otherwise, there was something else I was going to say, and I can't remember. Oh, Jordan. Yes, I mentioned that.
Skyrim Special Edition?
Motioning right now.
Sorry.
I've been having a hankering after listening to Kind of Funny's last Gamecast. I think you know where I'm going with this already, Jordan. I've just been really wanting to play Kingdom Hearts, and
Oh yeah.
And when they said when they concluded that you only need to really play
Dom,
1, 2, and I forget the third one, the PSP one, I think. Birth by Sleep. If you play just those
Birth by Sleep,
three,
Birth by Sleep, right?
then you're in pretty good shape, and you don't really need to play the rest. So now I'm motivated.
I gotta say I disagree with him. I disagree with a lot of things on that podcast, and that is one of them. I think Kingdom Hearts is one of those series that, like, if you are into it and you like that the crossover thing that they've got going on there, I think you just got to go balls deep. And it is like crazy convoluted, but some people are into that, and I think you just gotta. It's like a Souls game. Like, it's going to take your soul, so you just gotta kind of give it up and do it. You can't half-ass that sort of thing. But I think you could, you could play those 3 games and have a general idea, but there is a lot of very
just
important
feeling
plot
it.
points.
It's like it's grabbing my ankle, trying to pull me in.
But definitely, at least start. You gotta you can get the 1.5, 2.5 remix on PS4, and that'll give you Birth by Sleep, which is the starting point and my favorite Kingdom Hearts game. So there you go.
You want to hear something that I've never shared because I'll say it now. My problem with Kingdom Hearts, personally, and I'm not a super fan, I'm not even close to the fan that you are, Jordan. My problem with Kingdom Hearts is that it originally came out, it was this mix of Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. And this has nothing to do with the specific lore it's created. That's not where I'm going.
Final Fantasy and Disney.
Yeah. What did I say? Kingdom Hearts. My bad. Yeah, Disney and Final Fantasy. And what I was hoping is I could care 2 shits about Final Fantasy. I was hoping that it would lean into Disney, right? Lean heavily into Disney. My problem is that through creating its own lore, which is fine, it still super heavily weighed into the Final Fantasy conventions of storytelling, which kind of turned me off personally, of like it being super convoluted and all this stuff. And I understand a lot of people love that, and it's cool, but that for me, I'm disappointed from my perspective that they leaned towards that way of progressing the series. And that's my own hang-up. It's whatever. Who cares? My opinion doesn't matter.
Hey, man, I would never fault you for it, because I think they've made mistakes, and they've obviously done things where they were kind of just like keeping the series alive with these side games waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3. But it is cool, and I think we can all agree on that, just the crossover itself. So
yeah, and the more I think about it, I don't even know if I'm even a Kingdom Hearts fan, to be honest with you, because like playing those games, my favorite parts were the Disney parts of being able to be in the Disney worlds. I could care less about the Kingdom Hearts part of it, you know. So
well, that is one thing I will say real quick, is that it sucks that Kingdom Hearts almost never gets talked about for its gameplay, because of, you know, the fact that it's this big crossover, the fact that the story's way too convoluted, yada yada yada. I think they are very good, very competent action RPGs.
Yeah,
and,
the Keyblades are still cool too.
Birth by Sleep.
Like that's a good way to do like quote unquote gear chase of like you want to get that new powerful Keyblade and they're all unique and they look super badass. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And the combat was fun.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps up our show. The first time we're all back. We'll probably all be back next week. I don't think any of us have plans to not be on the show. And we'll have a back-to-back weeks of all three of us. We're going to have a busy week, I think. And we'll catch you guys in episode 64, I believe. Not too... Yeah, no, 65. This week was episode 64.
Yep.
If you guys want, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Jared_. Dom is at Dom's Oreos. Jordan is at Mellow Modus. You can follow the Controlled Interest Twitter at CTRLINT. That's Controlled Interest abbreviated. We're at 99 subscribers, so we're like one subscriber away. So if you can, please subscribe, rate us on iTunes. It helps. We say it every week, but it's the truth. We don't just say it to say it. Everyone says it because it matters. And also, I want to shout out Millennial Gaming Speak, which is the podcast that Logan and
Max.
I'm brain farting. Max. Logan and Max do. Yeah, I was brain farting. Logan and Max do. They recently did their 100th episode. I was on it. They were talking about basically gaming origin stories of like how you got into gaming and stuff like that. And they brought on a bunch of guests that they had previously. The reason I want to pimp it out is they actually came to me and asked me if I would redesign their whole thing for them. So I made their avatar, their podcast cover, all of that stuff for them. And I think it came out pretty good. They really liked it, which is more important to me. I don't care if I like what I make people as long as they like what I make people. So, definitely go check that out if you can. And we'll catch you guys next time.